Okay, y'all, here we are with the vibes that I'm a podcast with Ashley. You're gonna hear my baby in the background because we are doing playtime indoors at this time. Yes, ma'am, we are. We're doing playtime. So I'm trying not to edit things, so we'll see how this goes without editing. But I have a topic in mind for today, and that topic is about birth in the womb. And it's interesting because, wait, let me see if I can pull up the document. There we go. So I want to talk about the womb a little bit and pregnancy and birth and stuff. I used to do a lot of work with the womb and womb healing. And I am pretty confident in the fact that the years that I spent doing healing on my womb and doing different practices in my womb for my womb, whether it was ancestral or not, right? Like all of that helped contribute to my pregnancy and my journey towards motherhood. But besides that, while I was pregnant, I also did different practices that helped support like my pregnancy and the birth. Um, they were not spiritual at all. They were all physical, which is something else that's also pretty interesting, right? Like pregnancy, in my experience, was one of the most profoundly spiritual things that I could have experienced. And it's something that's very, very, very in the body. It's very, very, very physical. And it was so spiritual energetically that I couldn't go into other energetic practices. So there is this beautiful message or beautiful, I guess, way of you trying to find the magic in the mundane or make the mundane magical when it comes to pregnancy. And if you already have that lens in mind, then it can make everything a little bit more beautiful and a lot more beautiful. There were practices that I did with my baby, like to try to connect with her and talk to her, that were really cute while I was pregnant, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about the womb, the things that I did while I was pregnant that just kind of like help support my birth. And as I was doing research on how to prepare for birth and for the situationship that I was going to undergo, um, I read this book called I'm trying to find the natural. I read this book called Natural Childbirth: The Bradley Way, and it's by Susan McCutcheon. I don't know how to say her last name, but it's the Natural Childbirth: The Bradley Way. And I didn't really read it. I just listened to it on Spotify just because I was really busy. Um, but in this book, there were things that my midwife was also talking to me about, such as different exercises and positions and the pelvic floor strengthening and massages and stretches and things of that nature. And all of this supports your ability. Well, not really ability per se, but it does all support in helping you have a smoother birth, even though nothing is ever promised when it comes to labor and delivery, right? Like you can have the plan of your life, but literally you're just preparing for this birth, and whatever happens in the birth room is what happens in the birth room, right? So with this natural childbirth book and with my midwife, I ended up learning about different pelvic floor exercises and different stretches and positions that you can do, and also massages that you can do in your perineal muscle or perineal muscle. And these, especially the pelvic floor exercises or just stretches and things of that nature, yeah, like they actually do help you with being able to be more conscious of what you have down there. That is the birth canal. Like it is a part of the birth canal. Not necessarily the fact that your baby's going to be touching the muscles in the pelvic floor, but those can help you assist the baby in journeying down the birth canal. So the birth experience is literally solely responsible between the mother and the child, as in like nobody can give birth for you. is just you. Well, unless you have a C-section, which is a different story, right? But if you're giving birth and we're trying to do the vaginal way, then it's literally you're the only person responsible to give birth to your child, and your child is naturally equipped to have reflexes to be able to go down the birth canal. But if you learn how to kind of move your body in ways that will support your baby's descent through the birth canal, then your baby doesn't have to do as much work on their own. Then you can help assist your baby in going down the birth canal, and it can make it, theoretically, hypothetically, it can help make this process smoother, right? There's no scientific way to prove that it does help because, how can I prove that the stretches that I did or the positions that I had ended up helping the birth process go by faster? Because there's nothing to compare it to. Like, it's me and my birth with that person, right? So hypothetically, if you do these things, it's supposed to help make the birthing experience smoother. Um, so these pelvic floor exercises that help assist in potentially making the birth experience smoother also help you with your sex life. They also help you with having better orgasms. Everything that you do, which is something that I realized, to help you prepare for a better birth, also is something that is supportive to you having a better sex life as a woman. And I'm like, oh my God, of course, right? Like, it's obvious. The reproductive organs are also the sexual organs. And of course, they all work together. And of course, what supports the reproduction of something also supports the sex life of something. But it's just like, wow, like, it didn't click until I was prepping for birth that it's like, holy crap, this also helps me have a better sex life, y'all. So if you don't want to do pelvic floor exercises, which are also known as Kegels, I just don't like calling them Kegels, then you can think of it as things that can support you having more orgasms, better orgasms, bigger orgasms, and for you to just feel more pleasure. Because if you have issues with your pelvic floor, that can cause like pain and discomfort when you're having intercourse, and healing your pelvic floor system and whatever else is going down there, right, is one of the many things that you can do to help better your sex life. Obviously, you should always go to like a licensed medical professional for these things, but I'm just saying, like, it's there. Now, not only does the pelvic floor stuff help you with birth, right? Like, if you have a better control of your pelvic floor, you'll be able to contract and relax. And between the contraction and relaxation, there's also different levels. You can go deeper into the pelvic floor area, or you can go more superficial. And this sounds like wild. It's like, oh my God, what? Yeah, you can like actually hold the muscles deeper into your pelvis. And you can also only sustain a contraction on a more superficial level in the pelvic floor muscles. And all of these things you can help kind of like understand and feel in your body, how does this feel like, and kind of like control and learn more about your body and how to like manipulate those muscles. And by doing that, you will also know, or it can also help you, right? Like when you're in the moment of giving birth, on contracting and relaxing some of these muscles to help give way to your baby going down the birth canal. Now, not only do the pelvic floor muscles and manipulating them can help you with giving birth and the orgasm situationship and a better sex life, but as women, our pelvic bone, right, like it is wider to help allow for childbirth compared to our male counterpart. So we do need to have a good pelvic floor health to help sustain the organs, boring, whatever, even though it's kind of like, crucial for life. But yeah, it helps sustain the organs, blah, 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 blah. Also, it helps you not pee yourself when you're sneezing or laughing, especially after birth. But the most important thing is that it helps you orgasm. Yes, it does. My baby confirms. Um, So there's that. Now, something else that I did while I was pregnant, besides just the pelvic floor exercises that just help with all these beautiful things, was stretching the perineal muscle, right? Like the little area between the vagina and the booty hole, right? Like that's the perineal. So there's a perineal muscle, and the way that you would stretch that or massage that is to go inside a little bit. And there's a few books that help you prepare for birth that do show how you can do this. um in order, and I'm gonna get a little, vulnerable here, a little TMI, but we're talking about birth anyway. So in order for me, I didn't you could do it yourself. You can buy a tool to do it yourself, or a tool for your partner to do it, or your partner can just do it with their fingers. And I had my partner do that, and to kind of separate, pleasurable things with just, stretching for the purpose of helping me prepare for birth. He put on gloves in order to just kind of like have that little distinction. So I'm just offering that in case anybody needs that. That way, like, it's like, hey, like, this is the clear boundary. Like, when you're putting on gloves, this is only for, helping me prep. We're not doing anything. But, anyways, so he would go ahead and put one finger and pull down, and it would be until I told him to stop, because you feel a stretch. And people say that these stretches help prevent tearing, which I call BS on, because again, there's so many things that can happen when you're giving birth, that you can't just pinpoint one thing and say, okay, you tore because you didn't stretch your perineal muscle. No, that's not it. There's so many different things that can contribute to you tearing, that it would be ridiculous to claim that these stretches are the reason why someone didn't tear. There's so many other things that can contribute to that experience. So if someone just so happened to do these stretches and they just so happen to not tear, that is the jackpot, right? But it doesn't mean that if you do the stretches, you're not going to tear. Again, whatever happens in the birth and delivery room is whatever happens. All you can do is just prepare. Now, even though doing these, people say that, oh, if you do these stretches, you're not going to tear. And I'm telling you that no one can really like promise you that with these stretches. Then what's the point of doing them? Well, the point is that if you end up doing these stretches for your perineal muscle, it helps you learn what your body is going to feel when your vagina is stretching, and then your perineal muscles have to stretch as well. It helps you prepare mentally, physically, of what that sensation feels like. And then it also helps you be comfortable with that discomfort. It helps you be comfortable with that feeling. So I still think that it was a good thing for me to go through that and to prepare in that way. Even though, again, obviously, yeah, sure, like to an extent, if you stretch the muscle, then it does help give it flexibility, and it can help reduce the chances. But again, there's so many other factors that can contribute to tearing that I can't even know. I, especially after giving birth, if like looking back, any person that says, "Oh, if you do this, it's gonna prevent XYZ," I'm like, bullshit, bro. BS. Bull poop. You're lying. You're giving me a promise that you can't really promise. So, and that's it with anything as well, with other exercises as well. But a good book, my husband read The Birth Partner, and that one was written by Penny Simkin, who also just so happens to have a doula certification program. So this birth partner book is something that my doula also read, but my husband read it just so that way he would be prepared in how to, walk alongside me. And there's things that it talks about regarding what you can do to prepare for birth during pregnancy, different exercises that you can do together, different exercises that, the woman that's pregnant can do. There's also talks about, like, okay, if you want to do a natural birth, these are your options. If for some reason you end up going to the hospital, these are some options. And it also talks about all of the medications that you can receive in the hospital, all the gadgets that they utilize, which regardless of the plan that you have, it's always good to be knowledgeable about all of your options, right? Like, I personally plan to have a birth at home. I personally planned and prepared to go unmedicated. And unfortunately, something happened last minute that it became an emergency. I ended up having preeclampsia, severe preeclampsia out of nowhere, and I had to be induced. So now, me being unmedicated and me doing a home at birth was out of the window, and it was outside of my control, right? So you never know what's going to happen. I literally had a perfect pregnancy. Like, it was so beautiful. It was so good for me. I didn't have morning sickness. I did have a food aversion, but like, I didn't like olives to begin with, so it was just like intensified during pregnancy. um so I really did, I do feel grateful that my pregnancy journey was beautiful, and I do appreciate the fact that I didn't have complications. I had a, if I'm talking about other people and their pregnancy journey, I did have a relatively easy pregnancy. And again, out of nowhere, the very last week that I was pregnant is when I got severe preeclampsia. And then all of the plans that I had up to that point went out the window because I was low risk my entire pregnancy because I had a beautiful pregnancy. And the last week I became high risk. And at that point, I had to go to the hospital. I had to be induced. I had to get medication. So I my plans of an unmedicated birth, my plans of doing it naturally, my birth of doing a water birth, my plans of doing it at home, all of that went out the window. Even though I literally prepared like an altar at my home for birth, I didn't complete it, but I did start it. Even though I bought all the things that I needed to do a birth at home, it just all went out the window. So I am something that I and my husband both were kind of like, "Oof, we should have like prepared better." Is that because we were set on not having a hospital birth or not having medication birth, we didn't read up on those sections. And then after the fact, my husband was like, "Crap, like I literally skipped over these things, and I wish that I would have read it because then I would have been knowledgeable." Because then at that point he could have advocated for me because he would have known what would be good and what would not be good, what were the options, how good were the options, right? So I'm just, saying this not because, some people, because I don't, whatever. I'm just saying this because it's the truth. You never know what's going to happen in the birthing room. You really don't. um So there were some exercises that were there that also help you prepare for the birth. Now there's this website that my midwife recommended, like, the birth partner. I think I was talking about the doula. My doula read it, my husband read it to help prepare me for birth. It also talks about things to keep in mind after birth, before I start jumping around into a different topic. So as far as like birth goes, after you give birth, you're still going to feel contractions, right? They should never be more painful and more constant than the actual birth itself, right? Like when you give birth, that's the peak pain that you're gonna feel, unless you have an epidural. Then at that point, things kind of change a little bit. But after you give birth, you are going to continue feeling contractions because your uterus is gonna continue contracting and getting rid of some things, as well as it's gonna continue contracting as it's decreasing in size. So you are still going to feel discomfort and you're still going to feel pain after the fact, but it should never be more than when you give birth. And I'm saying that because I experienced pain that was worse than giving birth, and it was because I was internally bleeding. So I'm just putting that out there, not wishing, you know, bad on anybody. May whoever listens to this that's pregnant or thinking about being pregnant, may you be blessed, may you be protected, may your honorable ancestors, may your guardian angels be there and prevent all of these horrible things to happen to you. And it's good to be knowledgeable because if my husband and I knew that birth was the most painful thing that you should feel, then I would have been, and so would my husband, we would have been better able to advocate and communicate that information to our nurses. So just putting that out there. It also helps paint a picture of like what should be normal after birth and what shouldn't be normal because that is such a delicate time and it's such a thin line. So it's just good to be knowledgeable about it all. My husband read The Birth Partner by himself. I didn't read that. I listened to some of the natural childbirth, the Bradley method or whatever it was. Um, so we kind of utilized both of those different books and listened to them. Now, the reason why I liked these exercises and the pelvic floor thing and all this other stuff is because, especially in the natural childbirth book that I listened to, the woman that wrote that book talks about how she was a volunteer at a hospital, and when doctors and nurses got to a point with a pregnant woman where it wasn't the birth process wasn't progressing. There's two reasons for that. The first reason is, usually when you're giving birth naturally, there is a point in the labor process where things kind of slow down, and that is to allow for the mother to kind of recoup her strength, because the labor is going to start and it's not going to stop till she gives birth. So there is this natural dip in the labor and delivery process that occurs. Now, alternatively, there's also just like the stallment of birth. Sometimes a woman kind of like stops progressing, or a baby stops progressing because they don't feel safe, or they're not doing the right positions, or the baby, whatever, doesn't matter. So, this author of the Natural Childbirth Bradley Method book, let me make sure that I'm saying the correct title. I have it in my notes somewhere. No, the natural childbirth the Bradley way. The Bradley way, yeah. The author was a volunteer that would go to hospitals, and then whenever the doctor ran out of tricks on what to do with the mother to be able to give birth, and like the next step would be like medical intervention, right? Like, or like a surgery or C-section or something of that nature, they would call her to come and assist the mother in finding different positions to help lower the baby and start the birthing process. And it was these exercises and these positions that she talks about in this book, and that are also part of this website that I'm going to share in a little bit, that helped prevent these medical interventions. So, again, knowing your body, knowing your pelvic floor, knowing the positions that you can do to help assist your baby go down the birth canal can literally be the difference between you being able to give birth vaginally and you needing a C-section. Of course, there are situations that are emergent and that are possibly life or death, where you do need to have these medical situations, take place, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a C-section. There literally isn't. And I don't want anybody to come at me for this, but I think that all birth is natural birth. I don't understand why people are like, "Oh, did you give birth naturally or not naturally?" I'm like, "It's all natural, bro." Like, if people really sit down and look at the history of cesareans and C-sections, they have been happening before hospitals were a thing, before they were medical institutions. Women used to use banana liquor and a knife to be to kind of like do C-sections on the woman to be able to bring out the baby, and they were successful, where the mother and the child will both be able to live. So like, C-sections are things that have happened way before medical institutions became a thing. So both of these ways are natural. What would be unnatural would be like a freaking pod where you just inseminate an egg and a sperm, and you just put it in like a freaking cubicle, like in those sci-fi movies. That would be unnatural. A natural birth is a natural birth, period. Anyways, I digress. So the website that has these exercises as well is called Spinning Babies. So it would be like spinningbabies.com. They have daily activities. They have a few videos of like daily activities and daily exercises that you can do for free. I'm pretty sure that they also have like different programs that you could purchase if you would like to go a little bit deeper, but I just looked at the YouTube videos and I did some of those exercises. And the reason why my midwife showed them to me was because she said, right, that in the birthing experience, in the birthing process, depending on how birth goes, she would tell me to do some of those exercises or some of those positions to help the baby go down the birth canal, depending on where they're at. Because again, this journey is between the mother and the child. So the child could do all of the work, but they're a newborn baby, bro. Like, if you're, as a mom, know the different positions that you can do depending on where they're at in the birthing process, it can help assist it. It can help assist the baby and take off a little bit of the load off of them, right? Because we can take it on. So she told me that it would be good for me to do some of these positions, because that way I could be familiar in my body on what these positions are like, what it feels like, And she told me too that some of them are uncomfortable. And if I'm being honest with you, I didn't do any of the ones that were uncomfortable before I gave birth. But she did tell me that some of them were uncomfortable. And if I did do them before giving birth, then it would be less of a shock in the middle of the birthing process. So again, spinningbabies.com has some of those daily activities that you can do while you're pregnant that can help you, and it does break it down as well. It's like, oh, like this position would be good if your baby is at the top of your pelvic bowl. This position would be good if your baby is in the middle. This position would be good if your baby is closer to crowning. So which crowning would just mean that they're about, like their head is about to show or their head is showing. You're probably at 9, 8, 9, 10 centimeters, you're ready to give birth. So some of these things are very helpful for that. um so yes, I think that's all that I was going to talk about regarding the womb. I'm not really talking about the womb, if I'm being honest with you. I'm talking about everything but the womb. And my baby has something to say about that. She's like, yes, ma'am. You're not sharing the womb stuff. You're right. I'm not. Um, so that's pretty much some things that I learned. Like when I talk about the womb, what do you want to say, baby? Da 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 da. Yes, it's so important to have someone there with you. If for whatever reason your partner cannot make it, having somebody else that can go alongside with you would be like very, very important. Um, you obviously want the right company and a company that's supportive to you and that's gonna help you stay calm. But yeah, I can't even imagine having done what I did by myself. And if you can find a doula that you connect with, I would 100%, 1,000% vouch for that. I had one of my college friends, one of my besties, one of my closest friends, did study to be a doula, and she did get the certification with um, the woman that wrote the book, The Birth Partner, and it was something that was priceless. Like I can't even explain like how much help and support she gave. We didn't even know that we would need that support, and we were just, my husband and I were both really, really, really happy that we had a third person there with us to help tag team. So um when I talk about the womb, I talk more so about just kind of like pretty much the whole area down there, right? So in a way, even though I didn't really talk about the womb itself or the uterus itself, right? These practices that help give birth, you can do after you give birth as well, to help not only with your sexual life, but it also helps with recovery, which is something that I missed. So once you feel comfortable, once you're cleared by the doctor to do different things with your pelvic floor, doing pelvic floor exercises also helps you in having a smoother recovery. So it's just a lot of things that just come into play with that. So definitely look at the website if you're interested. Definitely look at those books if you're interested. I have Spotify Premium. This is not an advertisement. I'm doing this for free for Spotify, but I do have Spotify Premium and I'm obsessed with them and their audiobook section. If you are the holder of the premium account, then you are the one that is able to listen to audiobooks. And The Natural Childbirth the Bradley Way is one of the books that they have there. And if you want to learn about the Bradley Way, I'm sure that there's also different courses that you can take, and I'm also sure that there's YouTube videos that you can take. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll leave with this: nothing, and I mean nothing at all, within birth can ever be guaranteed. Point blank, period. So if you're looking at a YouTube video and they're like, "Oh my God, these are the exercises I did to help me not have a medicated birth." Okay, cool story, bro. It probably did help you, and it did support the idea of not having a medicated birth. But again, you never know what's going to happen. And I'm not saying this to be a Debbie Downer. I'm saying this just to be realistic, because my experience was that even though I did everything to make sure that everything was good, something changed last minute and the universe had other plans. But I'm glad that it changed, because the different things that ended up happening helped assist the fact that both my daughter and I would be alive in this world. So, yeah. And I'll leave this episode with that. Thank you for those that held on because I'm not editing this. So, thank you for those that held on to the end through the baby noises, through the pauses. I appreciate you. You're a real one. Once I get a little bit more liberté, I'm probably gonna start editing and doing all the 9 yards. But for right now, my goal is just to speak, share my voice, share my stories, share my thoughts, and put things out there until I get back completely on my feet. So I appreciate y'all for listening. I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, week, weekend, wherever this found you. And until next time.